time getting in for some reason.
Weird. I don't.
I mean, for all the
We don't.
One, two, out of 7 voting members, full, I think that's a quorum. Oh, you need 5?
If for a special permit, you would need 5.
I think Matt Waterman from Land Tech is waiting to get in. He
Yeah.
said
It's not.
All right.
In. So Kurt, I guess we're good to go.
Okay.
Are we all set, or are we waiting on? He'll tell us when, right?
Yep, you're on. Here you go. You can start.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the Chelmsford meeting for May 12th, 2021. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia and is being conducted remotely. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. If you would like to participate, please call into the meeting at 929-205-6099. First up, we have administrative review. Steve from the SOAR. First up, that we have Steve Janelle from the SOAR.
Keep going.
Actually, it's the public hearing for changing the select board.
No.
That you must have the. We had to put that
on the agenda. Oh my God! Sorry. All right. Let me pull up the right one. Sorry about that. What is the first one on the list?
It's a public hearing for a warrant article to change all the language in the zoning bylaws from selectmen to select board, or board of selectmen to select board.
Okay,
Can
and
someone read that legal ad? Someone have the legal ad? Open the public hearing.
It's part of it's right on the agenda.
Do you want me to read it, Tim?
yeah, please do.
So new public hearing, the town of Chelmsford Planning Board will conduct remotely on, oh, excuse me, that's,
Yeah, that's part of
fine.
it. Go ahead.
you want to continue to read that?
Yep.
Okay, we're on remotely on Wednesday, May 12th, 2021 at 7 PM for purposes of receiving public comment to amend the town code, chapter 195 zoning bylaw as follows. To amend chapter 195-zoning of the town code to replace the verbiage in the chapter from Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
I'll just give a quick overview. This is Article 30 of the spring town meeting warrant. The reason that this public hearing is being held later than the others is that I was not aware that this was part of the warrant. Obviously, the planning board knows that this wasn't a planning board sponsored article. As you see here on the screen, it was submitted by the select board as part of their continued process to recodify all of the town code for this purpose. This is a consent agenda item within the spring town meeting warrant. And it is essentially a housekeeping item. However, because it is an amendment to the zoning bylaw, by law, it requires a planning board to hold its public hearing, just like any other amendment to the zoning bylaw. And it also requires a 2/3 vote by town meeting. But as the article indicates, it is simply to change the term selectmen to select board. So similar to other zoning articles, the board needs to, as part of the public hearing, take any public comment, have any deliberation, and then vote their recommendation to town meeting.
Okay, so do we have discussion now then, Evan, and then?
Yeah, discussion, public input, then if appropriate, close the hearing and make your motion to however you want to recommend.
Okay, so it's a public hearing. I'll open it up. Colleen, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this?
If you would like to speak, you can turn on your camera. That's everybody.
All right, is anyone on the board would like to speak?
Well, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second.
We all set with the public hearing? Okay, then want to move to, can we get a second to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, who is Nancy? So Nancy and Mike are here now, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, okay,
Yeah, not today.
okay. So we all, so now that's closed. If we could go ahead, if the, anyone on the board would like to comment?
I just as soon recommend, move that we recommend it to town meeting.
I second that.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So unanimous.
No, it's not,
Okay, who is that?
Nancy.
You and Ned?
I find the whole thing obnoxious, but that's okay.
All right, so we have one nay and the rest yes. All right. We're all set with that one then, Evan, Colleen?
Yep, all set.
All right. Now, sorry, I had printed the agenda from earlier, Colleen, and then I just got the new one online. So, all right, next up then we would go to administrative review, and then we have Steve, right, from the SOAR.
Yep, Steve Yonley,
Yep, is he ready to go?
he's there.
All right, Steve, do you want to go ahead?
Yep, thank you. I guess in speaking with Evan last week, the board had a few comments or questions or concerns about the sewer moratorium. So I know council won't be here tonight. He'll be here in a couple of weeks with some more project-specific comments for Acton Road and in Central Square there. So I guess we can maybe cover the project-specific stuff at that time. So I guess what I'll do is just sort of give a brief kind of summary of what we did, how we're handling it, and where we are today. So as you remember, last summer, I came before the board and we talked a little bit about kind of the floors we were at, thoughts of what was going to go on. We had a joint meeting with the select board, Board of Health, I believe middle of August last year. And then we had kind of an internal working group, myself, Christina, Evan, town council, town manager, and we drafted up the moratorium. Moratorium went into effect September 15th of last year. And I can't stress enough that it isn't a hard moratorium where we're just not issuing permits. There's several provisions that allow projects that were either under construction or had valid permits but hadn't started construction, or in the process of obtaining either site plan permits, other zoning permits, determinations of applicability. So anything that was kind of in the queue, if you will, was covered with the moratorium. So in the moratorium language, there's allowances for slight increases up to 500 gallons a day. I think you might have seen some of that at your last meeting with the 200 Turnpike project. There's allowances for change of use, and again, limits. There's allowances to just re-tenant an empty building. Every project could trigger 1, 2, 3, many different scenarios in the moratorium. So each project we look at, basically project specific. When Evan speaks with a potential applicant, he tends to send them our way at DPW. We try to get a handle on what they're trying to do. We run some numbers and basically let them know if they can connect a sewer or increase their flow, as long as they stay under that 500 gallons per day, or basically they're on their own and they have to go through Board of Health with a septic system. So far, it seems there's only been a couple of commercial type of projects that we have said no, that have at least come down and talked to us. There's been a handful of residential projects. I know you have a recently approved subdivision up on Dunstable Road, few A&R lots, because there's provisions in the moratorium that if the lot was created prior to that September 15th date, they're okay, but if it was created after, such that subdivision on Dunstable Road, and there's been 3 or 4 A&R lots that have begun the septic design, because we will not issue them a permit. So, that's a quick overview going forward. Obviously, we're undergoing, we just had another meeting this morning with the capacity study, reaching out to neighboring communities, looking at our own, what we can do better, anything we can possibly do to free up capacity or acquire more. It looks like the potential in the immediate future, in the next few years, to acquire anything else from Lowell is not going to happen. We've had some conversations with Borica, some of their consulting engineers. That's something we will probably pursue a little further, just to see if it's a viable option. But until that report is, I think the contract expires in September. We're hopeful to complete that report at some point in the summer. So then we can start making decisions on, do we need to do something different with the moratorium? Can we ease it a little bit, or do we need to even maybe tighten it up a little bit more than what it is today? Again, the thought was, if we had decisions early in the fall or late in the summer, that gave us time, if needed, to do something at fall town meeting, if we had to. So the hope is we'll have some more answers here in the next few months, and maybe put that kind of tri-board hearing back together to discuss our options at that point. I mean, that's the gist of it. I guess I can take, try to answer any specific board member questions if they have any. And like I say, I know at your next meeting, Attorney Haverty will be on board to discuss the memos for those two projects around Central Square. So I can try, if you have a specific question on it, I can do my best to answer it now, but that's.
Okay. Is there anyone from the board that has a question?
I have a question. In terms of logistics for people who don't are not under the moratorium, they don't have permits pending, is there like a queue that you're keeping, or?
Yeah, so what we did when we drafted the moratorium language, I have a running list of projects that have come online in the last year, so it wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't have a full year's worth of flows to show in our current flows. And then I had listed projects in permitting, projects under construction, and we went off the design flow. So we have a really good idea of the stuff that is, like you say, sort of in the queue, as well as we also have a pretty good handle on the empty space. And if say the building at 270 Borica Road, which is empty, if they re-tenanted, and filled the place up with office, and for the last few years, it's either had minimal staffing in that building or nobody, and all of a sudden they fully re-tenant. So we have to track that as well. So because obviously right now there's no flow coming from that building, but you have whatever that, I can't think of it off the top of my head how big that building is, maybe 75,000 square feet of office space or something that could fill up in a weekend if somebody decided to lease it. But we have to account for all that as well.
And then, so do they have a place in a queue? Is there a first, second, third, or is that based on time, or how does that work?
No, it's just everybody that's got a permit is kind of in this, they're good. So, and then the project, I was speaking of the subdivision on Dunstable Road, they came in after the fact, so they're off the window. Some projects we know we can't handle, like the West Campus. I know there's a joint meeting tomorrow night. I've been upfront with anybody who's talked about that we cannot handle that flow at all. So they are.
Just to clarify, I think what Deidre's asking, Steve may not be answering. So there is no queue for future unknown projects that require a zoning permit. What Steve is referring to is under the moratorium, vacant office buildings are exempt, meaning they can be re-tenanted for office use.
Correct.
But if a vacant office building on 129 wants to come to the planning board and, let's say, convert to a residential use, that is not grandfathered. So what Steve is referring to as in the queue is, I believe what he's saying is when the moratorium was being drafted, presented, and voted on. But there is no queue for future projects that are coming before the planning board. Very often we're finding out about these, again, we get a call, I get a call, Steve gets a call. Some apply to the planning board and others never do.
So say a new plan was brought forth on an existing property where there was a prior plan, but this is a distinct plan. The moratorium applies to the plan, am I correct? I mean, I guess I don't really understand if it goes with the use. And then my second part of my question is, there must be some excess capacity, I guess, that was put aside. And is that put aside to be used for, such as you described, conversion of empty buildings to be redeveloped? Or, I mean, can we use that? Like, say the condominium project at 1 Billrica Road that was denied. So that was a 48 unit or 20, 30, whatever. I guess at the end it was 24, but they had allotted for a 32 unit building. So that's some capacity that was allowed, that was set aside, that's now not going to be used. Can that be used by a different project? Like, say, a new plan for 9 Acton Road or Dunstable Road? So that they're
No,
not having to build sewer, septic?
no, that'll be more of the, I think, the discussion with Attorney Haverty at the next meeting. But with the Grist Mill 2 project, if you will, that still has an applicability on the property. So that is holding its place, if you will, for that project. When they come, if you read his opinion letter on 9 Acton, that also has applicability, even though the applicability, I believe, was a 32 unit apartment building. Evan, correct me if I'm wrong. The new proposal asking the board if they want to amend the applicability and find that it is either in conformance or less detrimental, or whatever the term may be. If that's the case and the board finds that way, then they still have their placeholder as well. If the board determines that it's a drastic change, then they start fresh.
So again, just to provide some additional clarity, the primary objective when the town was drafting, presenting and voting on the moratorium was to craft something that was legally defensible.
Mhm.
So we were very sensitive in trying to draw a clear line as to projects that were, as Steve was saying, in the queue, were in front of the planning board or had already applied to the planning board or already had a decision from the planning board. That was primarily input received from council with the concern that if somebody had a valid permit from the planning board and yet the moratorium did not grandfather them, so to speak, or exempt them, that the town would potentially be open for legal challenge. The other piece of this is, which Steve hasn't really covered, but I think he's presented to the select board, is that we did have capacity a year ago, and we still have capacity today. The moratorium was a proactive, preemptive measure that the town manager and other town officials working with other town boards decided to undertake. The only piece that I think is noteworthy to the planning board is these 2 applicabilities. There's nothing else in town that has a kind of a grandfathered status under the moratorium. It's the applicability at 9 Acton Road and the applicability at 1 Central Square. And so, as I mentioned, as part of drafting that moratorium to ensure that it was a legally defensible or minimized legal challenge, the decision was made to identify or define those as acquiring a decision from the planning board. Then what happened is, as those proponents were going through the actual special permitting process, and this is what Attorney Haverty can speak in much more detail to. Attorney Haverty then had to issue a kind of a memo to the planning board and to applicants on a procedural kind of protocol, what to do with these applicabilities, these 2 applicabilities that were exempt from the moratorium. That's the piece that I think some planning board members have specific questions as it pertains to legal counsel's memo to you. But I just want to make clear that the moratorium in and of itself was drafted back in the last summer, last fall, ultimately adopted in September, October. We weren't able to project the future of those two projects. So what Haverty's memo isn't necessarily a direct line back to when the moratorium was drafted. These two are very unique conditions, and the challenge for council and the planning board is how do we deal with it within the context of the moratorium intended not to prohibit them from moving forward. We didn't know what kind of form or fashion they would move forward in. And as you mentioned, one started at 48, applicability was granted at 32, but what's in front of the planning board for the for 9 Acton Road isn't even 32 units. So that's something, again, something that Paul can speak to in more detail.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. On both of those projects, is there a major difference in the use between, say, a 32 apartment style to the 24 townhouse? Stephen, is there a major difference in use?
So I'm not familiar with what the applicability is other than 32 units. I don't know if that was 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom units.
Yeah, they're changing the whole building. I mean, they were going with one apartment style, garden style apartment, I assume.
I could jump in. So Steve may not be familiar with what actually is being proposed for 9 Acton. So the applicability was for a 32 unit, 2 bedrooms. The 4-story or the 3-story building was 32 units, each having 2 bedrooms. But 9 Acton Road is currently, the proponent that's in front of the planning board is for, I think, 24 townhouses. And there was a board member who said that the plan says 2 bedrooms in each, but the developer said that the plan was incorrect and stated to the planning board that each unit is 3 bedrooms each. So, coincidentally, both projects are 64 bedrooms.
They both equal the same.
Yeah. So from a sewer flow, and Steve can, again, to speak in more detail, it's probably just an even exchange.
Right, more or less, yep.
Okay. Answers my question.
Anybody else on the board?
I'm fine.
That's all Steve. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, next up, we have 56 Pile Drive to review and approve the draft decision. 56 Pile Drive, Hub Foundation. The property is located in the IA Limited Industrial Zoning District. The project proposed an expansion of an outdoor contractor yard with the construction of a second structure, 10,000 square feet, and associated site improvements. The applicant requests a minor modification to previously approved site plan approval and special permit site plan approval section 195-104 and the special permits per section 195-13 for multiple principal structures and any other relief that may be deemed necessary. I know we received letters from the town departments. Do you want to read those in, Mike, or do we have any, Colleen, any other letters to read in?
You were just waiting for,
The fire department, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You guys,
Just to set the stage on this, our notes indicated that the planning board closed the public hearing on this item. That's why it's listed under administrative on the agenda. And the board tasked staff with drafting a decision with the understanding that for tonight's meeting, the fire prevention letter would be obtained and available to the board for its review and inclusion in this draft decision. So I had emailed out a draft decision. I did have, it does include reference to the fire prevention letter. Their letter is pretty much boilerplate with the exception of they're asking for either a new fire hydrant or an additional fire hydrant to be installed as part of the second building.
Evan, should we read it into the record anyways?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know who has it.
Yeah, if somebody else wants to read it, or I will. Okay, I will. Dear members of the board, water supply, including the required pressure and flow, shall be confirmed by a current water flow test performed approximate to the site, with all calculations submitted to this department for review and approval. The developer shall add a hydrant within 60 feet of the proposed fire department sprinkler connection. The Chelmsford Fire Department requires a hydrant within 60 feet of the fire department connection and a hydrant within 500 feet for manual firefighting operation. Hydrants and fire protection equipment shall be free from landscaping or vehicle obstructions with clearance of 60 inches to the steam connection, 36 inches to the rest of the hydrant. The applicant shall submit a fire apparatus access plan that shows a bus 45 vehicle exiting the site and turn into the exit to exit the site. The fire department and the applicant will confirm fire apparatus access and turnaround according to the Chelmsford Fire Department specification. Fire apparatus access shall be designed by a registered engineer to withstand the weight of fire apparatus. Snow storage shall not obstruct or impede fire access roads or turnaround. All exits shall have sidewalks to allow continuous path from the exit that lead to a public way. The dumpster location shown on the site plan is adequate. An automatic sprinkler system conforming to NFPA 13 and a fire alarm system conforming to NFPA 72 shall be required. All systems shall be monitored by UL-approved central station monitoring service, and all components and fire protection systems must comply with state building code and Chelmsford Fire Department requirements. All equipment related to fire safety shall be located at the discretion of the Chelmsford Fire Department. The applicant is advised that testing for emergency radio responder communication and, if necessary, installation of a bidirectional amplifier system shall be required according to the Chelmsford Fire Department ERRC regulations. The applicant must apply to the town of Chelmsford E911 committee for address and unit number and through its coordinator, town clerk Trish deserves. And that is, this office would approve this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this letter a part of their approval process. Respectfully submitted, Daniel Katsufis. So that's it. That's the fire department letter we're waiting on. So with that being said, I think that was it, right, Evan? Does anybody have any?
That appeared to be what the planning board expressed interest in receiving. There didn't appear to be any other outstanding items or issues identified at the last meeting.
Okay. That would be it, and looking for a motion. And
so as I mentioned, there is a draft decision in front of you. It was emailed out.
Yeah.
Fairly boilerplate. I just want to call a couple things to the board's attention. Since this is a modifying previously approval, procedural history number 5 clearly identifies the book and page of the recorded previous planning board special permit site plan. So this decision is modifying that. Essentially, everything that was approved in that decision is included in this, and this decision then codifies the new site improvements. On top of page 2, the board is making taking two set of findings and two separate motions. The first one is on a minor modification to a previously approved site plan for section 195-104. And then the second one is a special permit for 195-12 multiple principal buildings.
I have -13 on mine.
On the decision, it should say 12. The legal ad had the Scrivener's error.
Okay, I might be looking at the wrong.
Okay, anyone else have any comments on that then?
No, so you look,
Get it? No?
I'm good.
Okay,
Ma'am as well. We need a motion to accept it.
First motion is on the site plan modification.
Yeah. So moved.
motion by Mike, your second by Henry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Let me go down the list just to make sure we got everybody. Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Henry Polly,
Aye.
Deidre,
Aye.
Mike Raceback,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Nancy.
Aye.
Okay, and then Erica, I think she's there, but,
Sorry, my video's not working today.
all right, so that's the first one, the second one now?
The second one is 19512 for multiple principal buildings on one lot.
Need a motion?
Yes.
Move to grant special permits per section 19512.
Second.
Second by Henry, all in favor? I'll go down the list. Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Deidre,
Aye.
Mike Raceback,
Aye.
Paul McDougal,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
and Erica.
Aye.
All right, so, and I'm an aye, so all in favor. Yep,
Who's Erica voting for as alternate?
actually, I don't think she is, Nancy. I just went down and just,
Okay.
okay, so anything else on that? Evan?
Checking.
Evan, all set on that then? Okay. All right, so we're all set then on pile. Now we're on 235 Littleton Road. Approval not required in A&R. Brian Melissi, representing the applicant, requests endorsement of the approval not required plan for the property at 235 Littleton Road. Is Brian here?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates, here representing 235 Littleton Road Realty Trust. And this is really just a housekeeping item. This project has been approved under a COID. And as submitted, the plan always called for the separation of the two lots, or the separation of the two buildings, the existing building that's out there now at 235 and the proposed building that has yet to be constructed. So this is just the A&R approval not required plan, creating lot B1 and B2 for that. I will go on to say and add that these, the property lines are exactly the way they've shown on the approved site plans. And this is really just a plan creating the lots that'll get recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Brian. Anybody on the board have anything on that?
No, I remember this. This is,
Yeah, we hashed it out pretty well.
Yep. So, if nobody has anything, can I get a motion?
Move to grant the A&R
second.
with usual.
3, all in favor? Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Deidre,
Aye.
Mike, Raceback,
Aye.
Paul McDougal,
Aye.
and Nancy.
Aye.
All right, and I'm an aye, so unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you're up again. Let me see here. 23 Chestnut Hill Road in an A&R. Brian Melissi, representing the applicant, requests endorsement of the approval not required plan for the property at 23 Chestnut Hill Road. Brian?
Correct. Again, for the record, Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates, here representing Gene Gillette for the property located at 23 Chestnut Hill Road. This is, again, an approval not required plan, which is creating a parcel A to the rear of number 23. And ultimately, parcel A will be annexed to 25 Chestnut Hill Road next door to create a bit of a bigger lot. So this plan will show that by creating parcel A and separating that from 23, 23 still remains in conformance with all the zoning bylaws.
Okay, anybody have anything from the board? Go around. Paul, do you have anything?
Nothing. I drove by, looked at it. Seems fine to me.
All right, Mike Walsh,
No comments.
Henry,
No comment.
Deidre,
No comments.
Mike Raisback.
I'll give you a motion on it if you want.
Nancy, do you have anything?
No issues.
All right, Mike, I'll take your motion.
Move to grant the A and R.
A second. Second
Second.
by Henry. All in favor? Are there any nays? We'll go around anyways, just to make sure. Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Deidre,
Aye.
Mike Raisback,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so unanimous. All right.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next up was 9 Acton, but that's been continued to May 26th. Also, I believe one Billerica Road also continued.
You need
So
two
then-
motions. Two motions to
Yes.
accept the continuance.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll move to continue 9 Acton Road to May 26th.
Second.
Second, Mike Walsh. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Do we need one for one Billerica Road also?
Yes.
Can I get a motion?
Go ahead, Mike, you're good at it.
Oh, all right. I move to continue 1 Billerica Road, and we also continuing that to May 26th?
Yes.
Okay.
I second.
Second by Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, I'm abstaining, I guess.
Okay, all right, and then, thank you, that went pretty quick. Next up, 200 Turnpike Road.
May take a while.
Yeah, I'll just read through it again. 200 Turnpike Road, special permit. All-Star Management LLC requests a special permit per section 195-5. Use and regulations in attachment 1, use table to operate a 2,800 square foot doggy daycare commercial kennel. A special permit per section 195-18 to reduce the parking in section 195-144C to reduce the buffer strips and any other zoning relief that is deemed necessary. Site is located in the IA Limited Industrial and consists of approximately 3.85 acres as shown on Assessor's Map 106-328-5 and 6. It's a public hearing, but do we have anyone here from All Star Management to?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? This is Attorney Philip Iliopoulos.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. Just wanted to say a quick hello and give the board an update since our last meeting. So a couple of things. At the last meeting, the board had recommended that we set up a site visit. I tried to schedule one for Monday of last week. Wasn't a good date for the association, so we rescheduled it for this past Saturday. I think it was a productive meeting. There was some concerns that they raised at the meeting that we listened to, and we've got some information for the board tonight on. And there was also some information or some perceptions about what we're looking to do at the site that we wanted to, make sure people knew that what really was planned for this site. So what we're trying to do here is create a doggy daycare very similar to the other 4 facilities that are in town. There's a big demand in Chelmsford for doggy daycares. Chelmsford has a large dog population. There are over 5,000 dogs, if you can believe it, registered in the town of Chelmsford. Almost 6,000, but some of them may have moved or passed away, so it's probably a little over 5,000, which I was kind of surprised at to hear that number. And we got
Ask Phil if he can turn his video off. Maybe that will help.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Phil.
Big time.
If you're locked up, you can exit and come back.
Did I click out?
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that. So he's based on the size of the interior of the site. He suggested that that's what we would limit it to, and that's kind of the max as to what we were thinking, anyways. This is going to be a site for dog owners that live locally. This is not going to be used for a rescue operation. So if at the last meeting I brought up a little bit of background about Thais and how she works with a rescue charity for in Puerto Rico for dogs that have been abandoned, especially after the terrible hurricane that they suffered. This is not a facility where these rescue dogs are going to be held. Those rescue dogs are actually paired up with a family here in the States and are connected from Puerto Rico to those families. So it's not what she's proposing for this site. This is going to be for probably mostly Chelmsford residents. The other thing we talked about with the neighbors is all of the dogs are not going to be outside at one time. So, at most, you're going to have 10 to 20 dogs at a time that might be going outside to get some fresh air, to relieve themselves, et cetera. It's not going to be the whole slew of dogs at any given time. And those dogs are going to be monitored when they're outside at all times. So there'll be a staff member that will be outside with the dogs. And if there's a dog that starts barking, the staff member is going to stop it. For whatever reason, the dog doesn't stop barking, the staff member is going to bring that dog back in. So it's not going to be a situation where they're going to be sitting outside with no that. We've talked to the dog enforcement officer about the other locations in town, and he has not had problems with them. Nothing that would have caused him to hold a hearing or to, have any concerns about how those facilities are run. And I did provide an email from him to Thais in your packet, which sort of outlines his preliminary inspection. And he's going to be inspecting the facility as well before it opens to make sure he's comfortable with it. So we'll continue to work with the dog enforcement officer to make sure that the facility is going to be operated correctly and set up correctly. And as I mentioned before, we're also working with a specialist that has set up and helped businesses establish these doggy daycares. A couple of other things I talked about last week, the issue about how we're going to handle any animal waste. It's going to be very similar how daycares handle animal waste for our children. It's going to be immediately brought into a closed disposal container inside the building, and then that would be sealed and put in the garbage trash at the end of the day, or every other day, depending on how quickly it fills up. And for our trash area, we're going to build a new enclosed trash facility. It's going to be completely fenced in, which is required anyways in town. So we're going to upgrade that and make sure that's a completely enclosed dumpster that's closed at all times when it's not being used. So we don't anticipate any issues there. We have other tenants in the building. Right above this doggy daycare facility on the second floor is a shared office suite. So it's basically where someone could come in and rent an office for a month or every Monday, or rent it to hold a meeting or a conference. There's some conference rooms they can use. So we've got people that are going to be doing business upstairs, having meetings on the phone, and so we have to be sensitive to them as well as our neighbors. So we are sensitive to the noise and certainly any smells, and we can't have that affect our tenants or the neighborhood. So the other thing that came out at the site visit is really a concern of the neighbors about noise. I think that's the biggest issue. And we discussed some of our plans, but they had some good suggestions too about incorporating some more sound mitigation into our plan. So if you remember last week, we talked about building a fence along the concrete wall on both sides of that concrete wall that would take that 6 or 8 foot wall and turn it into a 12 to 14 foot structure. But there were some concerns about sounds bouncing off the concrete and maybe creating an echo and creating noise that way. So again, we don't feel noise is going to be an issue. We're not going to allow these dogs to just bark constantly. It's not something that we're going to let happen, but we also recognize that that's not going to be sufficient to address the neighbors' concerns or satisfy their concerns, and maybe even the board's concerns. So what we did after that site visit, having heard the concern about the noise, having heard some suggestions about sound mitigation, is we've retained a sound mitigation company. They've looked at the site and they're working with us to prepare some plans for some additional sound mitigation. Those may include putting some type of material on the concrete wall that would create more of a sound absorbing material versus something that would echo. So, something on the ground that would do that. Something on the inside of the fence that would also create some sound mitigation. So they're professional. We're going to let them look at the site, come up with their plan to do as much sound mitigation as they see is necessary. We'll present that information to the board next week, and we'll also present that information to the abutters. They've retained Attorney Doug DeShane. Him and I have spoken a couple of times this week, and I've let him know our plan. So whatever plan we receive from the mitigation company, we'll also share with him so that he can review it on behalf of the neighbors. So we're not going to be seeking to push this to a vote tonight. We want to get some more information to the board and to the abutters that we think will address their sound concerns, okay? The other thing we heard a little bit about is traffic last week. Sort of just so the board and maybe the neighbors know, this site, when it was used by Triton Systems, had upwards of 130 employees. They worked at different times, but at any given time there was a full building, a full parking lot. They had a lot of deliveries based on the research and design they were doing. And so, you know, there were people in and out of that building all the time. This proposal, if you have 40 or 50 dogs on any given day, again, even if you have 60 clients, doesn't mean they're going to be there every single day. But if you have 40 or 50 drop-offs in the morning over a 1 or 2 hour period, you might have a car coming in and out of there every other minute, or even a noticeable difference of traffic on Turnpike Road, which is already a pretty heavily traveled road. So, you know, we're limited in terms of the number of clients we can take on, and their drop-offs and pickups are going to be random and over a period of time. If you see other facilities like the Countryside's doggy daycare or the Rough House on 110, you'll see there's 1 or 2 cars at any given time, 3 bringing their dogs in and out. It's not a traffic situation that we think will be exacerbated. And again, the building is there. So whatever traffic a building generates, for its users, it's not going to be significantly different. But we're going to continue to work with the neighbors and work with the board and hopefully come up with some detailed plans next week that we think will help with the sound mitigation and hopefully make it a little bit easier for everyone. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if the board has any questions. We'll get some plans next week to the board, but I just wanted to kind of give the board an update on where things stand thus far.
Okay, why don't we bring it around the board, just see if anyone has any questions. Start with Mike Walsh.
No questions. Thanks for giving us that update.
Henry?
No questions. I did take and go over to Kate's Corner and listen to them, and there's not a lot of noise there, and I actually went to 110. It was remarkably quiet, but no comments other than that.
Okay, Deirdre?
Yeah, I also found that the facility at Kate's Corner was surprisingly quiet. I have two quick questions. Phil, there's not going to be any overnight boarding of dogs there, correct?
Not at this time. If there were to be overnight, the town has limited us to a maximum of 16 kennels. So a kennel is a crate. It's where the dog would be required to sleep at night. So if that was something that we did in the future, those dogs would be kept inside up to go to the bathroom at, like babies, at 2 in the morning or 5 in the morning. So these dogs would be inside for the night. There would be a staff member that would have to stay there overnight. So we'd have to have a night shift, so to speak. So it's not in our plan, and but it's something that we could look at in the future, to be honest. Obviously, it's something that would be allowed. But again, those dogs would not be out at 11 o'clock at night playing in the outside pen. That would not be part of the plan.
Okay, and then my other quick question is the number of dogs, because I feel like I've heard a lot of different numbers, 40, 50, 60.
Yep. So the town provides a license for a maximum of 100 dogs, no matter the size of the facility. The police animal control officer looks at the site and sort of decides a maximum limit based off of the facility, the size of the facility. So they've recommended a maximum of 60. What Thais has sort of said from the beginning is, she's going to start off slow, max of maybe 40 dogs, and see how it goes from there. It could go to 50, but we couldn't do more than 60 because that's what the officers limited our facility to. Again, there is no plan to do overnights. I want to be clear about that. It is allowed. They have overnight at the Rough House, at Countryside, but it's really just a sort of the dogs sleeping there. It's not going to be like a day type operation.
Thank you.
Mike Raceback?
Yeah, well, I went and did the sniff and listen test in South Chelmsford and also over at Countryside, and I did not encounter anything at all disturbing. It seemed mighty quiet to me. Wish my dog were that quiet. That's the information I have so far. I guess we wait until the next meeting.
Yeah. And again, I do think those facilities are run well. They have staff that are outside with the dogs at all times. And if there was a problem, they can put a stop to it. The other thing we're going to do too, kind of similar to that, is sort of separate the dogs. And we talked about dogs being out maybe in groups of 10 or 20, but also being out in terms of, so if you go to those facilities that exist, you'll see that they have sort of two main pens, one for smaller dogs, one for larger dogs. The larger dogs are actually afraid of the small dogs, so they want to keep the larger dogs away from the small because they're afraid of small dogs. I've got a golden retriever. He's petrified of any dog that's less than 30 pounds. He's scared of them. So they keep those dogs separate, and we would probably do the same just because it's more comfortable for the animals.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, just that property we're dealing with is the only one in that area that only has access from Turnpike. To me, they could have connected the two properties in the back, probably be easier for the fire trucks. And that would be
Drive.
Yeah, to go back out with everybody else the other way. I don't know who owns the properties, but that was the only solution I could come up with, traffic. Because that's the only argument they have is traffic in my mind.
Right.
They're right across the street from a building that has 150 tons of cooling going all the time.
Right.
I mean, the decibels coming off of that are a lot louder than any dog. So the only issue I see is the traffic, and it's just too bad that that building is such a one-off there that they access on that hill.
Right. That building may have been built before Elizabeth Drive, I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably.
But again, if it wasn't people coming in and out for this business, it would be.
They would cut through.
It would be 3,000 square feet of office space, so you'd have employees coming in and out to rent that office space. So it's.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be no traffic, it would be different traffic for a different use.
Yeah, and that's the only issue I see is the traffic.
Okay, Nancy?
Yeah, I'm not seeing where the traffic for this application is any different than the traffic for any other application in that building, so
Exactly.
that's not one of the things I'm worried about. However, when we have done special permits for kennels in the past, we have included conditions of use that included the limit on the number of dogs that could be kept, the limit on the hours of operation, and no overnight boarding. Phil, if we put a limit on this kennel of, say, 40 dogs, and the other, and 7 to 7, as we've done for other kennels, would that be a deal breaker for the owner?
It's something I can talk to them about. I think initially she's not thinking more than that, but it would, certainly I know she's already said that she would be happy with the limit proposed by the dog enforcement officer.
Yeah,
So let me
that's-
talk to her about somewhere in between and see what she has to say. The other facilities in town, I know Countryside is overnight. Are you saying that some of the others don't?
Countryside's overnighting as a veterinary hospital. The other kennels are not overnighting.
Yes.
Oh, she's adorable.
I love you. Beauty of COVID and Zoom, right?
Absolutely. So the one kennel I can think of that we've gone through a review in the past.
But yeah, I can talk to my client about
And that's definitely no overnighting. I believe it's 7 to 7 for operation. And I'm not sure the number of dogs, but I'm thinking it's like 25, 30. So this is a slightly bigger facility. So it seems like 40's, a good number in terms of the impact on the neighborhood.
Okay. I can talk to you about that.
Next up, Erica?
So, do we have an open public hearing here?
I don't know, Mike. I'm actually waiting for Erica to comment first.
Sorry, yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Evan, do you have anything on this? Any comment or anything?
Yeah, I'll just remind the board that it's the special permits for the use, that's 195, 103. And there's A through H are the findings. So it sounds like we're continuing this evening. Just for the newer members, the goal of the public hearing is for the board to obtain enough testimony, evidence, so that you can make an informed deliberation on those 6 or 7 findings as it pertains to the use special permit. If any of the public hearing testimony is light on any of those particular findings, it's incumbent upon the board during the public hearing to seek additional information, again, so it can make an informed deliberation and ultimately a decision. The only clarification question I have is, I've heard 2,800 square feet. Is that inside and outside, or What's the square
That's just,
footage?
that's just referring to the square footage of the inside of the building.
Okay. And then the outside square footage is what?
Sorry. Oh, I have it. I froze again. I apologize.
What's the outside square footage? Trying to figure out what is the ACO determining maximum dogs based upon? Total indoor and outdoor, or?
He's determining it based on the interior of the facility.
Okay, so if it was a worst case weather, they'd all be inside and that type of
They'll
thing?
be inside, having them, in separate facilities for, let's say, large versus small, including the 16 crates. Let's say some of them wanted to eat, eat lunch, they'd eat lunch in their own crates. Yep. That's what he felt was a safe number based on the size.
Okay, and then I haven't heard any discussion about drop-off procedures. Is the drop-off through the front door of the building, or will there be an opportunity for clients to drive around the back and drop off at the outdoor location?
No, it'd be done through the front because it's got to be sort of controlled. So basically, they'd come in the front door and immediately go down the stairs to the basement, and that would lead directly into the welcome area, a sort of private, cornered off area where they would meet with the staff, and the staff would bring them out back with the other staff, so that this way the dogs aren't all sort of interacting as they're coming in and out. The outside will be completely closed, the entire outside, so that nobody from the outside can come in. The dogs can't be distracted by anything, and quite frankly, they'll be safe from anything from the outside. So there'll be no, access in and out by clients on the outside of the site.
Thank you. And Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. Just a couple of comments. I actually, I like what Nancy said about the restrictions, the number of the dogs, and restricting the overnights. I wonder if, I know that you're going to be working with an attorney for the neighborhood, so maybe that's something that can be brought up that can satisfy the neighbors, which I know would help me in making a decision too. So I would like to see you work something out with them, and maybe restrictions would help that, along with helping with the noise, soundproofing. So that's all I got for now. So do you want to, now it's a public hearing, so do we want to, we received tons of letters in opposition. So I don't know if everyone got to read them. I went through as many as I could. Do we have anybody on Colleen that is in favor of this project that would like to speak?
That I'm not sure, but Christina Papadopoulos has a letter that she'd like to read.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, I'm sorry, you don't have the letter with you?
Oh, I thought you were going to read it.
I can find it. Okay, dear members, this office has reviewed the site plans by Howard Stein Hudson, consisting of 4 sheets dated April 1, 2021. As a result of this review, this office has the following comments. This department shall be notified when work on site is to commence in order to arrange for inspections. No alterations to the drainage system are proposed under this application. Any revision to the drainage system shall be submitted and approved by this office. A site as-built shall be provided upon completion of work on site. The as-built shall be from a ground survey and submitted in AutoCAD and paper form. The sewer moratorium applies to this project as it is a change of use. The moratorium allows for an increase of up to 500 gallons per day. In review of the existing building and with the understanding that this project will convert 3,500 square feet of office space into the dog daycare, calculations provide for 6 kennels with no increase. Utilizing all of the 500 gallon per day increase plus the converted area equals no more than 16 kennels. That's 50 gallons per day per kennel. This would then restrict the rest of the building to its current uses for sewer capacity allotment under the moratorium. If you have any questions, please contact this office, Christina Papadopoulos. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Christina.
Christina?
Yep.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Christina. Nancy. Have you taken a look at the design of the outside? I know when we did the dog park, there were analysis done for soil saturation and such. In your engineering opinion, is this design adequate for the use?
So essentially, what we start off with in this design is a paved area. So you can't just have the dogs going out on a paved area to relieve themselves. So I suggested that they remove the pavement and supply it with something, replace it with something that was more permeable, which would replicate what would happen under normal circumstances, whereas, you know, a dog would go outside on grass and relieve themselves, and solids would be picked up and removed accordingly. So it seems like what they've proposed is just for that purpose. And that's how it's been explained to me.
And what they have proposed is basically the state of the art for the purpose of a kenneling situation.
And it seems appropriate. I don't know, you know, where it is in the state of art, or whether it's a gold standard or what it is, but it seems like it's an appropriate, like that's the use of this product. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from the board members? And if not, I'll move on to Colleen from the public. I don't know, I know that we're going to be, you're going to be working on this, Phil. So I don't know, you know, how much we want to go through with the public now, because I know the opposition, there is a lot. That's why I was wondering if there was anybody actually in favor of it, because.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I would like to comment because I would like to discuss the meeting that did occur on Saturday. The attorney indicated it was a productive meeting. I find it to be far from
Can you
true.
just hold on one second? Tell me who you are and your address, please.
I'm Victor Garofalo. I live at 5 Milestone Ave, right behind Turnpike. So the attorney indicated that the meeting was productive. I was at that meeting and it was far from productive. In fact, the meeting was probably less than a half hour with the attorney and the owner. We expressed our concerns regarding the facility. We expressed our displeasure and not in favor of this facility. I think the attorney indicated that we were trying to work out a mitigation plan. What we were indicating is that we did not feel that this was the location that a dog kennel should be. We wanted to demonstrate to the attorney and to the owner a barking dog in that area so that they could see the impact of one dog and what it would be heard on Turnpike, and they adamantly refused to actually demonstrate the dog to show that, you know, that the dog would echo off of the concrete and this would be one dog. You talked about visiting the various kennels in town. I actually had an opportunity to visit 3 kennels. Countryside, I went there on a Saturday. They are not open on a Saturday, so I did not have an opportunity to hear the dogs. But if you go to Countryside, you'll see that kennel is really abutted to a lot of industrial commercial, and it's on a main highway, and the area where the dogs play is in the back of the kennel. The one down near Kate's Corner is a very small kennel. I went there on a Friday. When I got there, there was one dog there. I actually had a chance to speak with the owner, and I asked them how many dogs do they accept at the kennel, and they said less than 10. I actually went to the backyard to look at the area where the dogs are, and it's a very small fenced-in area. I also had a chance to visit the convenience store that was adjacent to the property, and I actually asked the convenience store, can you hear the dogs barking? And his answer was yes. That convenience store was a lot further away than the closest neighbor to the place where the kennel is going to go now. Then I went to Abby's Corner. Well, Abby's Corner has been there for 75 years. My understanding is they offer an overnight kennel, and they also offer a doggy daycare. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to be over at Abby's kennel. They have a kennel on 5 acres of land, and it abuts all conservation land in the back. I did have a chance to actually talk to the owners of that kennel. As soon as I pulled up, I will let you know, the dogs were barking. So For those of you who said that you didn't hear dogs barking, I guess you probably went in a day that there were probably no dogs, or maybe there was one dog present. But I can assure you that the day that I went to Abbey Kennels, as soon as I could pull up, the dogs were barking, and they had less than 3 dogs there. I did discuss with them how many dogs that they offer in their kennel. They said less than 20 and less than 10 dogs at a doggy daycare. So the kennel that's being proposed here that we're adamantly against, just to make that clear, they're proposing anywhere from 50 to 100 dogs. If there was a need for a kennel in this community, then why aren't the other kennels in this town maxed out? Why isn't the kennel down at Abbey Corner, who's been there for 75 years, resides in 5 acres of land, maxed out? It's because the need is not there. I understand this person loves dogs, and I can appreciate that. She says she had 6 dogs of her own, but this is not the right location for this kennel. We did not go to this meeting to mitigate the circumstances. They were not willing to talk with us. In fact, I think the meeting ended abruptly, if you ask me. I know that one of our neighbors did end up speaking with the owner afterwards, with the attorney not present. The attorney did leave within the half hour. But I found the meeting to be less than productive when the attorney was there. I think he made it out to be like we were in agreement to mitigation plans, and that is far from the case. That's all I have to say. I think there are others that would like to speak too.
Okay, I get that, Victor, and definitely respect your opinion, and hear you guys loud and clear. But I want to just bring this to the board members, because the fact that we're gonna, we're not voting tonight. We're gonna be giving the attorneys time to talk and work things out. Is it worth pushing this to the next meeting when we have different answers? Because right now, we have no idea what's going to be happening. They're going to be coming up with a new plan. Is it worth pushing it out, or would you like to hear from everybody tonight?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Anybody that's got something else that they want to add other than what's been said, like they have another comment of, we know sound, we know smell and everything else. Just we're trying to get a list together, that's all.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment, Mr. Chair? This is a public hearing, and people should have the right to talk. You advertised it as a public hearing.
Yeah, Victor,
we have a right to talk.
I get that, Victor. I completely 100% understand where you're coming from. We're going to have another meeting on it. That's all the point was. Go ahead, Jess. Can you just state your name and your address?
Yes, hi, Jessica Porter, also at 5 Milestone Avenue. I guess mine is more of questions that I feel are important to ask that I am definitely desiring answers for. So I guess the first question is about the special permit process. If this special permit is to be granted, is it associated with this particular business, or does it live on in perpetuity with anybody else? Like, is it there forevermore, or is it only associated with this particular kennel? And I guess the second part of that question is, if it doesn't live on perpetuity, what is the planning board's track record in terms of viewing things as past precedent? Meaning, if it does stay only with this particular business, does that mean if this business fails, ceases to exist, what have you, is somebody else going to be able to come in and open another kennel under the same parameters of this particular special permit?
Evan, would that be the case?
Yeah, so the law does allow special permits to be granted to a specific entity. In practice, almost all special permits have been granted to the land and run with the property. But legally, the planning board does have the authority to grant it to the specific applicant, and so that it would not be transferable to a new owner without coming back to the planning board for, some sort of check-in.
Okay, so obviously you can see where our concern is then, particularly if, you've granted it once, why would you deny it to a future business? And again, I think these decisions really need to be explored carefully and a lot of thought put into them. You know, I submitted a significant letter on behalf of Victor and I. It was approximately 4 pages that addressed a lot of other concerns, both with the entire application process, as well as concerns beyond just traffic, which seems to be the sentiment that we're only concerned about traffic. Traffic is a very important piece of what we're concerned with, but things like our home values and the other issues raised in my letter and the letters submitted by my fellow association owners are quite extensive and significant. So I just really urge the planning board to, you know, carefully review those letters if they haven't had a chance to already. You know, this is something we're very, very concerned with, and I think we have a right to be. And again, the special permit process and zoning exists for a reason. It should be examined carefully each and every time. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public
Anderson?
that has something different to say would be great. Go ahead.
Sure. Sarah Anderson, 199 Turnpike Road. And before I make my statement, I have some video from our security camera that shows some of the traffic incidents that happen just outside of where this proposed kennel is, for those of you who are not particularly concerned about the speeding and the impact that that could have on a one-way in and out in a facility. So before I make my point, is there an ability for me to show my screen through the Zoom? I mean, I know I can. Is that accepted as part of my public statement is the question.
I would say that you would have to submit it to me for the record.
Okay, so I will do that, but I can show what I can talk about, so I'll get to that.
Okay, hold on.
I would characterize the root cause of the misalignment between the property owner and the residents as a belief by the property owner that she can make this space, which is not well suited for a kennel, suited through a number of hoops and loops and mitigations and fixes and patches. And the list of things that are wrong with this property for this use are so long. It's not just noise, it's not just this. Some things that haven't been stated or explored, I think, to the fullest extent through appropriate study are in and out traffic, the fact that she doesn't actually have enough parking spaces to meet the proposed staff to dog ratio that she was thinking about having. There's no appropriate place for snow removal where they have historically done snow removal is exactly where she's planning to put the outside pen. There is industrial activity that's way too close to where the dogs are going to be, to the point where it's likely unsafe for the dogs to be exposed to that kind of noise, which is different than where sort of how the industrial activity is with the other kennels in town. And fire access, there's no complete throughway through this property. There's only one way in and out. You can't even circle around the entire property. So the list goes on and on: noise, traffic, improper use, how are we going to do snow removal? And when you have all of these problems, that's what creates this challenge of, you know, the negative impact both on the dogs and on the neighbors. And so I think you guys just need to ask yourself this question. If the town, you know, maybe they need the kennel, maybe they don't, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. But if she's going to be renting out this space, she owns other properties, why does it have to be here? Why are we all going through this extent and having tons of meetings and hiring experts when it's so clearly obvious that this is not the right space for this kennel? And if she wants to have the business, that's fine, but she can have it in a place that's much better suited and more consistent with the best practices of the other kennels in town in terms of placement. And I think that roots to the fact that she just genuinely hasn't had the experience of working one-on-one in these types of kennels before. Sure, she loves dogs. She has 6 of her own. You know, that's great. But I have friends who have also stood up kennels, who have stood up doggy daycares in New York, in Massachusetts, and all of them have interned, worked, volunteered at facilities that actually have the number of dogs that they were planning to have before they started their businesses, to really see if, you know, they had the right setups, the right institutions have the experience to ultimately make the business successful. And so those are my closing thoughts. I just don't think at the end of this process, we're going to reach a situation where everyone is in agreement. This is a fantastic space for this operation. Thank you.
Todd?
Thank you.
I think we have Todd out there wants to say something.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Todd Dvorak. I live at 11 Ruth Ellen Road, which is literally sort of across the street and behind the Millstone condos. So pretty close proximity to the site. While I appreciate the efforts that the applicant has made to try to mitigate or at least think about noise, that is certainly my biggest concern right now. You know, we have a few dogs that bark in the neighborhood that are quite a bit further away, and you can hear them crystal clear. Right now, this is a very nice, quiet neighborhood, and it's part of what makes living here so pleasant. And I'm really concerned that, I guess I'll second what others have said, that this site doesn't really seem to be a good fit for the intended use. And I really see it degrading the quality of life of quite a few families that live in close proximity to this, and they're going to be adversely affected. So I would ask that the planning board members take that into consideration. I do appreciate the planning board members having taken the time to go look at other kennels. And I guess I would just ask you to consider how you would feel if maybe this was being proposed very close to where you live. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
David Lasky.
Yeah, so the points that I wanted to make is the biggest thing that I see that really hasn't been addressed is scope, scale, and proximity. If you look at Boston Dog Company, that is 10 dogs, and it's a very small location. If you look at Countryside, that is 20 dogs. I visited Countryside. I spent time talking with staff there. Tuesday and Thursday are busy days when they have about 20. They max out at 25 dogs. Wednesday is less. They told me on Monday and Friday they generally are around 5 dogs. Abbey Kennel is much smaller. So again, when you talk about what we're looking at a kennel that is targeting 50 to 60. So it is double the capacity of what the town currently targets of all their kennels combined. And one of the slides that I wanted to show, but I guess I won't be able to show tonight, is an overlay. If you put the location of where the proposed kennel is, where our properties are, and you put that overlay on where Countryside is, you will see that our properties are twice as close as what any other residential property is to Countryside. And in fact, our front yards would actually be right by their parking lot. So not only is this kennel, in terms of size of scope, 2 to 3 times larger than anything that exists in the town right now, our properties are also twice as close. This is a formula for strife, disturbance, and again, it's not only just the size of the kennel. There's no other kennel that's 60 dogs in this town. You take all the kennels combined, Abbey Kennel sits on 5 acres of land. Let me repeat that, 5 acres of land, and they're on conservation. This is a very tight industrial area. One of the things that Philip had stated at the meeting about Countryside was that you had the asphalt plant. That asphalt plant is 3 times the distance of the building that's right next door to this kennel, as well as there's a carpentry plant currently inside the same building. So imagine what happens to the dogs when the dogs are sitting in a building, and inside that building is a carpentry plant that's one of the tenants. The parking lot that is next to this kennel is bordered on 2 sides. There are about 25 parking spaces that are right next to this location. The front of the building is right next to this location. The owner themselves has stated when Amazon comes up, the dogs bark. So between the parking that surrounds this kennel, No other kennel in town has parking that, directly abuts this kennel. So again, you're looking at a very stressful situation for the dogs because of this location. We have confirmation from a vet that states putting this kennel in this location will stress the dogs. This is not just harmful to the neighbors, this is harmful to the well-being of the dogs with where the location is. The last point that I want to make up is, as well as Philip has brought up a lot of things that are great about what the owner intends, I found out with conversation from Westford Animal Control that the owner, Westford has a strict limit on the dogs, where if you have more than 3 dogs, you're supposed to have a kennel license. They had a noise complaint this year. So within the last couple of months, the animal control officer went there. The animal control officer stated that the minute he approached the drive where the dogs went nuts, they're making a lot of commotion. So number one is, if the owner can't control their own dogs, how are they going to control when they have 50 or 60? They also had more dogs on their premises than was legally allowed. So if the owner is not going to comply with the Westford Kennel, ordinance, what makes us think that they're going to comply with whatever they state with this town? Again, Westford Animal Control went to their property because of a noise complaint. There were more dogs on the premises than were allowed. They did not have a kennel license, and the owner stated, oh, well, all these dogs aren't mine. Some of them are my daughter's, or some of them are my children's. So if they're going to violate Westford's law regarding the kennels and the licensing, what makes us think that if we give them a permit to run 60 dogs, that they're not going to run a shelter, they're not going to violate the MDRA and not have the proper certifications? We know that they are currently running rescue and shelters. There's nothing that I see that if they're going to violate the Westford law, they're going to violate those rules, that they're not going to do this with ours. If anything else, this should seriously attack the credibility of what's being proposed and anything about what they say and how they're going to run their business. Again, if they're going to violate Westford rules, that anything above 3 dogs requires a kennel license, and they had more dogs on their property that was a result of the noise complaint, that should be very disturbing to this board.
All right, David, I think we've got the point. Do you have anything else you want to add, though? Anything different?
No, again, it's the scope and the proximity. Our properties are right on top of where this kennel is. There's no other kennel that has a location that's this close.
We completely understand that. I don't know, Phil, if you would want to even do a poll of the board members who would be in favor, because before we even move on, or you want to continue to listen to more, because do you want me to have more public hearing, or do you want to take a poll and see if there's anybody in favor of this? Evan, is that done at all? I mean, I don't know how any other board members feel, but maybe you guys come back, the attorneys come back with something different, but listening to the public, it's pretty clear. So I don't know if the board members feel the same, or if you want to do a straw poll just to see where everyone's landing, but because we could just continue to hear that. I mean, it's loud and clear.
My take on this is it's premature, in my opinion, premature to take a straw poll, particularly where the applicant's attorney has indicated that they are retaining a sound consultant and intend to.
Yeah, so wait on them till they have their meeting.
Right.
Okay.
The other piece that Tim, you suggested that the attorney do is to reach out to, I think the neighbors have hired an attorney. So having the 2 attorneys talk basically about what the board has talked about this evening, Nan's comments, sound mitigation, maybe there are other items that can be worked out and report back to the planning board. My final comment is, and I'll say this because I feel like it needs to be said, the planning board is bound to make their decision based upon the facts and findings. The board is obligated to determine what are facts and what are not facts. That's the role of public hearing, and that's the role of the board in trying to figure out what are relevant facts and what can be supported factually. You need to do that in the event you are considering a denial. So just because testimony, right, just because testimony from somebody said it's noisy or trafficky, it's the board's job to determine to what extent those facts are relevant.
Yep. No, I think we're all aware of that. I just, they're voicing very, the concerns are heard loud and clear. Okay, so is there many more, Colleen, from the public?
Just Anderson again.
Hi, Sarah Anderson, 199. I think that's part of the problem that you just said is there aren't a lot of facts because no studies have been done. Our attempts to, as Victor stated at the meeting, bring a dog down to that space and have them bark on command. The lawyer wasn't particularly interested in actually going through that exercise. We have no traffic studies. There aren't a lot of facts from independent third parties to help us resolve this concern. I think the result of that, as I said before, will be that this is an improper use. I think that's obvious. But, it could benefit all of us if that's still not clear to actually engage third parties. I'm not even sure the name of the sound consultant that's being hired and how independent that assessment would be. But perhaps that will help us get to a resolution.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else calling?
David Lasky again.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
One other quick point on the traffic pattern. The traffic pattern is very different. When you have, say, 60 people who are coming on to drop off and then leave, and then pick up and leave, you're adding approximately 230 trips to that location. The traffic pattern is very different from if you have 100 people in that office who come in and then they leave in the evening. So when we did the calculations, we showed basically a 250 to 300% increase in trips. Not only that, but because you have a crossover pattern, you actually have the chance of the entrance of this is actually blinded on two sides because it's on the apex of a hill. You actually have the chance for backup on that hill because of the fact of to pull in, drop off your dog, wait, and then leave. We actually can have backup on the turnpike, which this area of the hill is very congested and dangerous. So I would disagree that there is not an impact to the traffic and that, just the fact that you have 60 cars possibly coming in and out twice a day and the other tenants, this is a very much an increase in the traffic. And the fact that it's on the apex of the hill that's blinded. Anytime utility work has been there, we've had 2 traffic officers. It's not an easy intersection.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. So definitely there is an issue with traffic from their standpoint. Okay, so we would then, we're just going to keep the public hearing open. Get a motion to next week. Go ahead.
There's 2 more that would like to speak. Sean has not spoken.
Okay.
Sean?
Go ahead, Sean.
State your name and address.
Good evening. Sean Griffin, 9 Bishop Street, Precinct 9 representative. I would like to thank the board this evening for its time in hearing our concerns over this proposal. I understand there's been, it's quite a long evening already. We'll have plenty more comments in the coming weeks. So I'll make my comments brief. Overall, I believe we have seen significant opposition to this proposal, and in concurrence with my letter, I don't know if you have had a chance to read it yet. I want to reiterate that I do not support this proposal. The immediate concerns over the abutters, over noise, and line of sight have been discussed. However, one of my biggest concerns with this proposal is public safety at the intersection of Turnpike and Mill Road due to the blind corner that exists in the direction of 129. A commercial business like this would no doubt increase traffic on roads already heavily burdened by the poor placement of apartment complexes in recent years. In time since being built, we have seen an increase in speeding and pedestrian traffic on these roads. I think this board needs to think long and hard if we are willing to put public safety at risk for economic progress. Time and again, these neighborhoods have been sacrificed due to the specter of economic stagnation. one we have been told looms over the town if we do not permit businesses on these roads. First in the 80s with the initial commercialization of this district, and now with proposals such as this. This proposal is not a good fit for the site or the abutting neighborhoods of Milestone Condos, Kings Grant, and Chelmsford Acres. Rejecting this proposal is a step in the right direction to protect these neighborhoods not only now, but against similar commercial services proposals in the future. I made a request in my letter for this board to investigate potential buffer zones to permanently protect these neighborhoods from businesses such as this. I might add, with such opposition, this board look into the generation of a 129 mitigation committee consisting of residents of these neighborhoods to open a dialogue with this board over concerns for this area's development in the future. The nature of this proposal is well-intentioned, don't get me wrong. Potentially, this board could assist in finding a location directly on 129 for this business that does not abut a residential area. I would like to close my comments with a brief conversation I had with one of my constituents who had concerns of buildup and insertion of such businesses by our neighborhoods. If I wanted to live in a place like Burlington, meaning apartment complexes, commercial services such as this, I would have bought a house in Burlington. I chose Chelmsford for its neighborhoods, but they're trying to turn it into Burlington. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I ask
Yes.
if my client could maybe speak to address just a couple of things that came up tonight?
Sure.
Thais, are you on the Zoom?
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been listening to all the stuff that have been said by the neighbors, and I want to make sure the board understands. The meeting that we had was.
Can you say your name and address, please?
Sure, it's Thais Majaza, and I'm the owner of 200 Turnpike Road.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The meeting was productive in the sense that after the initial 30 minutes were over, the owner at 199, I believe, is Sarah Anderson, and I spent a significant amount of time, like 30 to 45 minutes, going over the questions that they had, such as the location of the trash, how the trash was going to be picked up, the fencing, the landscaping, hearing what recommendations she may have for reducing the noise. And I assured her that I was going to leave our meeting and immediately go to Home Depot and Lowe's and speak to their building department and see what suggestions they may have. I did in fact go, and I believe we may have some one or two solutions to the problem. However, when I meet with the sound company, we'll discuss it and see if they think it would help. Initial conversations with the sound company, he seems hopeful that this is a solution, that there are solutions that we can address so that the neighbors would be hopefully more accepting of a doggy daycare being there. There was someone who, Mr. Lasky, mentioned an incident at my house. And I'm very sensitive to people looking into my living situations and wanting to expose it on a public thing like this and not have to share the actual facts. The facts of the story is I live at home with two teenage kids that are in college. They have each adopted rescue dogs, and they live at the house, and their dogs during the school year stay at the house. The incident that now these dogs have been at my house for the last 7 years. I've had dogs at my house with no incidents whatsoever. It was a new neighbor who did not understand, not even on my street, it was on a different street, I believe, that heard dogs barking because playing, the dogs could see them through the fence that we have that I'm replacing. When the police officer came and I spoke to the police officer and then spoke to the animal control, they all understood that there was really no problem with the dogs, and they understood that when a delivery person comes up my driveway that's unknown to them and they are looking directly over the fence to see the dogs, there would be a problem. At the building location, there already is an 8-foot cement or concrete wall, retaining wall. On top of that, for the safety of the dogs, so they wouldn't be bothered by human interaction, we're putting a 6-foot vinyl fencing with landscaping in front. So there really would be no opportunity for anyone to, from the top, disturb the dogs, or from the one side where it's the parking lot, they would be exposed to interactions with humans. The facility is safe enough, and the animal control officer in Chelmsford came to the office at my request, so I can go over what my plans are prior to even doing any of this, to make sure we have the right steps being taken, and that getting his professional opinion of an animal officer checking on the space to make sure it's safe, I have the right ventilation, if I have the right ideas for check-in, check-outs. And he was absolutely impressed with the infrastructure that's there currently. And he totally understood that their dogs would not be outside unattended. I am super sensitive to the number of dogs that I would have in my facility so that they're safe, but yet enjoying their time. I'm not sure if anybody else of the neighbors understand, or maybe the board understands. The state of Massachusetts most recently came up with a dog kennel license for homeowners who have more than 3 dogs. I was not aware of this until I spoke to the animal control officer, and he even suggested if the dogs for my children are transient dogs, then I don't need to get a kennel license. And I said, I'd rather get a kennel license to be on board with what the law says, because what is the description of a transient dog? Is it a 24 hour, they come for a couple of hours, or can they come and stay for a week? So rather than have it be a question of what is transient, we are getting a kennel license for the house solely that my children's dogs can come and stay for whether an hour to a week or a month at the house, and I would be playing by the legal laws that are established by the state of Massachusetts. When the animal control officer went to my house in Westford, he actually saw the space, and so did the police officer, and they were very impressed with the steps that I have taken as a pet owner in a residential house, so that the dogs during the winter months would have the same context of feeling like they're playing on the grass is being done on the winter months. I have invested in AstroTurf at the house for the dogs. I have sanitation that I follow at the house so that the dogs aren't getting diseased or unhappy. The disposal of their poop is done promptly, the same way that it's done. There was no odor they did not witness any odor. And the only time they heard the dogs barking was when the police officers looked over the fence and the dog saw a stranger looking up. And then he realized that once I was talking to the police officers, even though I was on the other side of the fence with the police officers, the dogs were not barking. They were actually quiet. The animal control in Chelmsford, when he was there at his site visit, I was there with 2 of my dogs, my barkers, and the animal officer saw that the dogs were very good in listening. When I gave them commands, they listened on command. So it is a little, to me, hearing last meeting for a doggy daycare to be called a toxic business was very hard and difficult, and I expressed that to Sarah, and I'm still troubled by that. And then hearing tonight of my personal home being disclosed the way Mr. Lasky did, I find it kind of offensive, and I don't think it's appropriate to kind of put information out there and not have to defend it to the board and the public who's listening of my character and what my style of doggy daycare is. I would be treating the dogs in the same exact fashion as a daycare for a child. They don't go out in a daycare. There are 17 classes. All 17 classes don't go out for recess time at one time. They go out in groups. That is exactly how I would be handling the doggy daycare. The dogs would go out in very small groups of 5 to 10 at one time. Not 40 dogs if I had 40 dogs in the day, or 50 dogs, or 60. This is not I understand and respect the neighbors' objections, but I've also asked them to have faith and work with me and give me their suggestions. And I believe Sarah gave me her suggestions, and I'm working towards that. Hence why we're not asking you to vote tonight. We're actually asking you guys to please delay the vote for the next time so that we can give the board our proposal for the soundproofing, which was the biggest concern they have. So I'm hoping that the board would hold their objections or voting until they see our plan and really give us the opportunity to present to the board and then have the chance to speak to the lawyers from the other side so that they can also understand. I'm not looking to make it a difficult situation with my neighbors. My other company, Triton, was there successfully for 25 years. They had 132 employees that came and went throughout the day, including lunch times, comings for the morning, going out to meetings, coming back to the office. What I'm actually doing is going to reduce the number of traffic, not increase it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for clarifying some things. We appreciate you taking the time. Do you own the property, or are you a tenant in the property?
I own the building and I operate my own business out of there, my property management business out of there, and I'm hoping to also run this doggy daycare, which I have, correct, within the building. However, I've been working with professional, 2 people who have successfully opened and grew to a second location in New Hampshire. They have been advising me every step of the way, from the check-in process to the papers being handled. Everything I've done has been under their advisement, and they will actually be on site. They'll come in and work with us on site with the training as well with the employees.
Okay, well, hopefully you can all work together with the attorneys and try to come up with some solutions, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting. Give everybody a chance to work on this, and then we'll go from there. So I think the public was also heard. We'll hear from you again, but at least we'll give everybody an opportunity to work a little bit more on this and then come back to it. Does that sound fine with everybody? Anybody?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question? So,
who's speaking, please? Who's speaking?
Victor from
Okay,
5 Miles
Victor, we've actually let you speak like 4 times. So we're gonna go to the next meeting, and then you'll have another opportunity again. But we've actually beat this up. Your concerns are well noted. You're gonna have one more. You have another chance at the next meeting, but I think
Victor, you're muted.
So let's.
I would like the opportunity to speak since
I have a question for the board.
I would like the opportunity.
Again, who's speaking?
Nobody.
This is David Lasky of 3 Milestone Avenue.
David, so we have heard from you already 4 times. We've given you opportunity. You're gonna have another opportunity.
You can't shut us down. It's a public hearing.
We're not shutting you down. We've heard from you.
Look, you know what? You can't shut us down. It's a public hearing. We have a question for the board. We should be able to ask it. Do you understand?
Okay, who is speaking right now?
Can I please address the fact that I was accosted for addressing the public nature of exposing to lease?
Again, but we're not gonna go back and forth on this. We've already discussed this, so that's that.
But again, I was attacked for quote unquote exposing to lease. I just want to make.
I honestly, there's no time to do this right now. We've heard from you. We've heard from her.
No,
Okay.
I was personally attacked. I was.
Wow.
I don't see any progress happening here at all. We should.
No, I don't.
We should just vote on it right now, is what I'm saying.
Well, we're not gonna vote on it now. We're giving them we're gonna give them all a chance, and the public hearing is still open. We're not closing the public hearing. We're gonna let the attorneys work with the neighbors and then come back next time and go from there, which they'll have a chance again to speak. We've heard them again.
Excuse me,
We've
Mr.
heard
Chair.
everybody say something.
The
Who's
attorney,
speaking?
this is Victor. The attorney for the person that was proposing this, you did not cut him off once. You were cutting off us, and that is not fair. This is a
Victor,
public
that's
hearing.
actually not, you're not telling the truth now. You've spoke, I think 4 times.
I have a question.
What is your question, Victor?
If the board decides to approve this permit, I would like to know what the appeal process is.
That's your question.
You can call me in the morning and I'll let you know.
Wow.
We're not voting on it right now, Victor.
Okay.
So you're preparing to lose when you don't even know.
Hi, I just have one last question. Can I ask one last question? The owner of the property, when she spoke, I'm sorry, Jessica Porter,
Okay.
5 Milestone. The owner of the property, when she spoke, mentioned a consulting company that she's been working with. I believe she mentioned out of New Hampshire, has 1 location and supposedly a successful 2nd location. I want to know if either she or her attorney is willing to share the name of that consulting business and or the dog kennels that they operate in New Hampshire.
Phil? You're muted, Phil.
All right, sorry, Mr. Chair. I'll talk to, I know they're all represented by Doug Duchesne, so what I'll do is I'll talk to my clients so we don't take up too much time of the board tonight. I'll get that information over to Doug Duchesne, and I'll also, I'm sure Doug Duchesne can discuss with them the legal process on appeals and things of that nature, but I'll talk to my client and share whatever information we have with Attorney Duchesne, okay?
So for the benefit of the public this evening, you're not willing to share that information in terms of that company that she's working with?
Again, I don't want to go back and forth. I think it's better that where they have an attorney, I'll just work with Doug on that.
Okay.
On any of that.
Colleen, is there anybody new to the public at all? Anybody new?
No, and that should be addressed
Okay.
to the chair.
Okay, excellent.
Would you accept
Go ahead,
that
Mike.
to continue?
Yes. Mike's motion to continue, can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Nancy, I believe. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Aye. All right. So that will be, thank you, Phil. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right. I had to actually move because my dog was barking. Mike, what is left? What do we have? I had to move upstairs because my dog was going crazy downstairs. Can you read the next one, Mike? What's left? Mike Walsh.
I don't have the agenda up in front of me right now. Colleen, you have the agenda up?
Yeah, it's under new business. There's 3 items. First one is town meeting update. So I've been sending emails to the board. I think some of you have been participating in select board deliberations this past Monday. Select board voted on the final zoning articles related to non-retail marijuana. Those proceedings included a letter of opposition from the Board of Health, specific concerns related to orders related to indoor and outdoor grow facilities, concerns about nuisance complaints related to potential odor complaints, And ultimately, their letter opposed all of the accessory uses, including indoor and outdoor cultivation. From there, the select board did vote 5-0 unanimously not to recommend the marijuana articles. So at this point, all of, FinCom, Planning Board, Select Board process is complete, and we're on to town meeting. My only final comment on the marijuana article in particular, I encourage you to view the Select Board meetings. There have been several town meeting residents who have expressed a keen interest in hearing from the board on this particular issue, and not very much from myself. And they also mentioned the town manager. As the board knows, I am more than happy to present the facts as it pertains to the zoning article. On occasion, if a question is asked on the floor, I will attempt to answer a who, what, where, when, and why question based upon the discussions that the board has had, either during the work session or their public hearing. On occasions, you've seen me indicate that a question is best answered directly from the planning board. I think we're heading in that direction for many of the questions that will be posed related to marijuana articles. Next update, just quickly, Mike Walsh mentioned tomorrow evening, 6:30, is the joint meeting between the planning board and select board for the meet and greet on the UMass West project. So that agenda with the Zoom link and the PowerPoint has been sent to you. Next item is the master plan update.
Evan, I have not received that, and I asked for, so I don't know if I'm missing something or if any of the other members have received it.
I apologize. I thought it went out. If not, we'll send it out first thing in the morning. I know it is posted.
No, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to see if it could be me, the end user, not.
I haven't got it either. I don't think I received it.
We'll send that out tomorrow. If you can't wait until tomorrow, it is posted on the town's website. So you can see, you can click on the PowerPoint tonight if you wanted to. But we'll send out the agenda to the board tomorrow morning.
All right. Thank you, Evan.
Master plan update. Tomorrow I will be sending out the link to all of the draft chapters. They're both in Word form as well as PDF. George Zaharoulis, the chair of the Master Planning Committee, wasn't sure if he could attend your tentative work schedule for next Wednesday, the 19th. I will circle with him tomorrow to confirm whether he's able to attend that meeting. Otherwise, he indicated that he would likely be able to attend your meeting on the 26th or a meeting in June. So the last item is the standing agenda item discussion work session scheduling. As I mentioned, the board did tentatively schedule a work session for May 19th, a week from this evening. I would suggest we confirm that. I think we have a variety of topics that we can discuss.
I don't know you tonight. The what? They're talking about the last item on the agenda.
Colleen, can you mute whoever's?
Yep.
My other suggestion is, which is on the agenda, is that the board should work on creating a kind of a comprehensive itemized list of topics. I know we've talked about a lot, but I think it may be worthwhile to create a consolidated list. That way, at least everyone knows what the potential items of interest are, and maybe we can begin to group them. Maybe some are a bit more straightforward than others. For example, maybe some are procedural, while others may be policy discussions. Some may be handled with a subcommittee that can report back to the full board. Others the board may determine that it warrants full participation of all board members for every time it's discussed. So just trying to figure out a way to kind of streamline so that we can make progress on these issues. As it pertains to what we discuss at the work session, my suggestion is that we either hear from Henry tonight or we hear from Henry on the 19th, and then maybe allow staff to, myself, Christina, and others to kind of present how we go about doing our business, so that everybody on the board understands how we currently operate, and maybe that we can discuss improvements.
Can I ask you a question? Can any of these work sessions be done in executive session with just the board and yourself?
Not an executive session, as I mentioned at the last meeting. In the past, the board has essentially done work sessions offline, where they post the meeting, but they tell telemedia that it's not to be televised like a regular planning board meeting. So working in Zoom, we can certainly post a meeting and give the Zoom account. I'll have to check the legality, but we should be able to give the Zoom link to the planning board members.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, I don't have a problem having a general work session that's publicly available, but you know, I think we all need to be sensitive and aware that, you know, we all act differently when we know we're publicly viewed as opposed to not publicly viewed.
No, I agree with that. I just question that there's new members on the board, right? So I think we should walk through the bylaws. I think there's some organization inside the planning board itself that should be discussed. And I'm not sure that that's public knowledge right away, that we can give a summary after. I just think that if we have an open discussion as a group that we meet every 2 weeks for years, right?
I understand.
I think we should have a discussion. I think
I'm not aware of any
executive session. Why can't?
I'm not aware of any. There are specific reasons why a board can go into executive session. I don't believe any of these would justify going into executive session. Would qualify.
Like you said, if it's a workshop.
I just don't want to. I don't want to have anyone embarrassed.
I'll be embarrassed. I'll be embarrassed because I don't know.
Yeah, so that's why I'm suggesting. That's why I'm suggesting if we create a list,
mm-hmm.
and I'm assuming some of the items on that list will be specific deficiencies or that people believe exist, and it's clear that some of those could be with staff. I'm an agent of the planning board. Christina works as an agent of the planning board, and there are a variety of other departments that provide input into the planning board process. So I don't think any of those are newsworthy. I think the themes are out there. So I'm not concerned that we create an itemized list that identifies those. What I'm suggesting is that before the board articulates them further, once the list is created, let staff come into the planning board and present to the board how they go about doing their business related to the planning board. So for example, if fire prevention is on the list, let's have them come in and explain how they do a technical review. Police, they often write letters that they review traffic and they had no concerns. So you know, again, I'm assuming that one of the items on the list is we never get a letter from a department that says, I have a concern or a major concern, and I can't recommend approval. So maybe the planning board, rightfully so, needs to understand how does a technical reviewer go about their review? What's the methodology? Because quite honestly, I'm assuming you don't know, and quite honestly, I don't know because I don't make it my business to micromanage, you know, other technical reviewers. So
Evan,
maybe that's.
I just want to make it clear that I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody. I just saw some deficiencies that I think we should address.
Exactly.
I do work for another couple of towns too, and I am aware with what they do with some of their stuff as an electrical inspector. And there's things I may have some suggestions that would help it.
There's always room for improvement.
My major concerns are I'm seeing some deficiencies. There's not much we can do about some of them. Some of them we might be able to do something with, but I would like to see some improvements. And if nothing else, just communication.
Henry,
Yeah,
are
so-
you okay with waiting till the workshop on the, to go over that and the procedures, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a workshop, because apparently what we're doing right now, there seems to be some issues with.
Yeah.
And we have to get around them or improve them somehow.
Yep. Deirdre, you mentioned some concerns as well. Are you all right waiting till the workshop next Wednesday? And I think Evan mentioned it, different ways that we can work on these issues, even with subcommittees and things like that. But we can all present everything to Evan, and then, you know, put together a plan for next week. And then
Watch.
Absolutely. I think that I'm perfectly happy to wait for a workshop.
okay. So if that is good with everybody else, then what we'll do is all of us, whoever, you know, your initial concerns, whatever it is, we'll get an email to Evan. Nancy, Mike, Raceback, you guys good with that as well?
I'm fine.
Nance?
Kim, yeah, I think that interdepartmental process is an open meeting issue, but not a televised meeting issue. On the other hand, staff performance is something that you would take into a executive session, and I do not believe that's what we're doing. I don't think that staff performance is what we're addressing here. I think what we're addressing is interdepartmental processes and developing them and improving them. And that's an absolutely appropriate thing to take into a work session.
Okay, excellent. And honestly, yeah, like the procedure for new members, for all of us, just a review on how things are going. And like Evan said, maybe making some improvements. And it's not to, you know, pick on one group, it's to make this all flow better. Okay.
What time do you want to start that work session next Wednesday?
6 o'clock, all right with people? Do you want to wait until 7?
7.
7, okay with everyone?
Fine,
Okay,
right?
so 7 p.m. Evan then for next Wednesday.
Okay. And just a reminder, we'll see you tomorrow night, and I'll send that agenda out with the link.
Now, I have something for from the committees to report from the Housing Advisory. Evan, we want to set up a meeting as well, a joint meeting with the planning board. So if we could figure that out.
Yeah, I initially, we thought about next Wednesday. I don't think that's the best course of action. So when the planning board schedules its second or third work session, maybe we'll identify one of those to bring Housing Advisory Board in, David Hedison, maybe Town Council, to have a dedicated conversation about inclusionary, PILO. It may be how to improve decisions related to that rather than reinventing the wheel.
Perfect.
We'll discuss all options.
Okay. All right, any other committees to report while we're on that? No. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks.